Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Today's video is about our wicking tubs. You can see them in the background there. We have multiples of these. These are a 220 litre HDPE barrel. These ones had soap in them, so we've just washed the soap out and sanitized them for using in our garden, which we are comfortable with ourselves. You can buy them that have had only things like fruit juice and things like that in them as well. They're just more expensive, obviously, so we got what we could access easily. Now, we've turned a bunch of them into wicking barrels because that was the plan to use for them, and we've left some whole to use for our gravity-fed drip irrigation for the other beds as well, which we haven't done yet, and when I get that done I will share with you. But anyone who's been watching knows that we're having some postage issues with getting the drip line here. It still hasn't turned up. But over a span of a few days, I put one together and filmed doing it. Now, tutorial type videos are not my forte. I don't have a lapel mic yet. It is something that I've been meaning to buy myself, and I just haven't got around to it yet. So I only had the mic that was on the camera while I was doing it. And then it was middle of the day, so it was sunlight, so being able to see my screen to be able to judge what I was looking at was really hard too. But I think that there's enough details in the instruction to share it with you. So today's video is going to be showing you how I built the wicking tub that I used for the Kajari melons. Alright, so we're in my grubby garden, and I'm going to try talking while I'm doing this, but it's not necessarily going to work because there's music and stuff going in the background, so I may have to voice over it later. So these are our half barrels, right? And these are what we're turning into wicking beds. So the first thing that I need to do is put a drain in it. So let me see the screen so that I can see what I'm doing. So I need to measure 300 mils down from the top because that's about how much soil, mulch and everything else that I need. So I need it to be about 300 mils. So right about there. I don't have a pen with me, but that's close enough. Then I've got a spade bit on the drill. So all I'm going to do is just like that. All right. And then I've got a Stanley knife just to clean up the edge. As much as possible. Just like that. Now, next thing I've got, oh, no, camera, well done. Next thing I've got is a top hat grommet. So this should fit really snugly into that hole. So we're just cleaning burrs off to make it as smooth as possible. Those spade bits are not the best option for these, not really. And then we're going to shove the top hat grommet into that hole like that. Alright, so then we've got the top hat grommet in there. Now, I'm using the 19mm elbows, which will just go straight in there. But we do need something on the inside of this to stop the sand from escaping, or the soil. So I've been using offcuts of shade cloth. Let me see if I can find a piece. Here we go. Offcut of shade cloth, and then we're just going to, now, depending on how snug your hole is, it's a 19mm grommet, top hat grommet, and it's a 19mm pipe. So they're supposed to fit snug, but this shade cloth adds millimeters onto it. So you have to be aware that it's a bit of a snug fit, and sometimes what we found was that we couldn't get it in at all, and what we needed to do was just put the pipe in, and we just put the shade cloth on the inside, which, you know, works just as well, but it's a little bit more secure if it's on the outside. So let's see, maybe my hole needs a bit. That's the problem with the spade bit as well, is that it doesn't cut a very clean hole. So sometimes you have to go back and clean the hole up, because those little burrs are going to impact the size of your hole and not let it. Let me get the mallet. Now, the mallet only sometimes works because we're banging against a bouncing surface. But if you can get one corner in, then sometimes nearly there. Now, you want it snug because you don't want it to leak, but at the same time, there we go. So that's all. Let's see if I can't see the screen very well because we're in the sun, but that's all snug in there, all nice and tight. So all I'm going to do is end up having to put a bit of that shade cloth on the inside here to cover that opening, just to make sure that no sand or anything's going to escape out there. So let me get a bit of rope or a zip tie to do that. Alright, I got a bit of the baling twine from the rolls of ag pipe, so that'll work. So I'm just going to secure this probably can't see because of my hat, mind you. Alright, so that's secured there. Now it's not, you know, hugely massively secured, but it'll be fine because it's going to have sand over it anyway, so it's not going to matter. Alright, so next step is the ag pipe. So I have the ag pipe here. I've cut it to about a 2 metre length, 1.8 to 2 metre length. Each end of the ag pipe is covered with the weed matting tied on. Again, we just use the baling twine from the rolls. And now you just have to make it fit, just like that. Alright, next step is a water fill. So I've got a 19 mil off-cutter pipe with an angle on it, and all I'm going to do is opposite the outlet, I'm going to cut a little square into the ag pipe. Just like that. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can make sure that you guys can see it. Hopefully you can see it. So there's the gap there, and I'm just going to slide the pipe there. Now, because I haven't been particularly exact with that hole, the next thing I do is I put a bit of weed matting over that to block up that bit of hole. So let me cut a piece off. Alright, so I've got just a piece of weed matting, and all I'm going to do is where this sits, I'm going to put an X so it can go over the pipe like that, and then I'm going to tuck that bit of weed matting in around the pipe to cover up that gap, just like that. Okay, so now we move it to where it's going to be, because we don't want to be moving it afterwards. We've got everything in there that's ready to go. Now we need wicking layer. I'm using sand as my wicking layer. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's get a little spider critter out. Alright, so I'm going to get a little bit more because I want all that pipe covered, and this will settle a little bit into all the little nooks and crannies. So I'm going to top this up slightly because remember we've got the outlet on an angle too, so it goes up slightly so it can take a little bit of height higher than the outlet, which is why I make sure the outlet's under the sand. So I'm just going to grab a bit more sand. So a little bit more sand in top. Like that. And then we start with the next layers. Some people put a layer of weed matting over the sand as their barrier layer. I didn't really want to do that, so what I've been doing is a thick layer of sugarcane mulch. Now I've seen lots of people use that or wood chips or anything else. I don't really want to use wood chips because they break down too much into like a sludge. Sugarcane just, it's not quite going to do the same thing, and I've seen a couple of people use it as that barrier layer, and I just think that it's one of the better options. So after I do the layer of sand, I put in a really solid layer of sugarcane mulch. This is going to compact a fair bit as the weight goes on top, so you want to have a decent sort of a layer on there. Now, sugarcane is really easy for us to source here in Australia, so this is a mulch of choice for me for a lot of different things. After that, I add in a layer of mushroom compost. And then sprinkle a bit of dynamic lifter over that layer there. And then we're going to cover that up with some more mushroom compost. And then I have a bag of cheap potting soil. So this isn't top end stuff, it's quite chunky, it's got quite a lot of sticks and bark in it, but it's just a bagged soil that works well in the top to separate that mushroom compost from the soil a little bit, because that mushroom compost can be a little bit rich. So it gives me a planting layer. So by putting that potting soil there with just a little bit of the mushroom compost mixed through the top, couple of handfuls of that, just because it's good wicking material too, through that. And then I have some rock minerals, so then I'm going to do a sprinkle of Earth Life rock minerals. These are just the standard garden ones that will help with the soil. Mix that into the top there, and then I'm going to mulch it. Alright, so next thing we do is we need to fill the water reservoir. So we're going to just top this up until it starts leaking out the overflow. Initially when I plant stuff in there, I'm going to water it in at the top as well, because the roots aren't going to be established enough to draw the water from the bottom, but we want to keep the bottom nice and full so that the soil starts wicking, the wicking process, and doesn't dry out in between. So it's going to wick up from the bottom, we'll water it from the top, and it should meet in the middle, and the plants should stay happy. So I worked out these are a half a 200 litre barrel, and we've got about a third of the base is a water cavity. So I assume that there's around about 33 litres of water capacity for each bucket.
Look how we're fitting.
I'm just going to wet the top a little bit because I'm going to go and grab the plants to put in it now, and then I'll water those plants in as well. Alright, so we're going to put Kajari melons in this one because I've put some old metal framework behind it, so these will climb. Now, the only thing with Kajari melons is that as the fruit ripens, it'll fall off. So if you've got it on a trellis and it drops, then you're going to smash your fruit. So what we have to do is when we come along here, we need to sling any fruit as it develops if you've got it up on a trellis. But I've got this space here, so I wanted to use it. So I put this trellis work up, and I'm going to put these 3 melons in this tub. I am going to put them towards the back of the tub, which is a bit closer than I would normally in a structure like this, but they're still going to have all that front space to extend their roots, so I don't think it's an issue. And maybe I'll put something small in the front as well, just as a companion for the front of this plant, some sort of herb or something. I'll have a look at what can go with the Kajaris. The Kajari melons don't do huge, like they're a fairly they do personal size melons, and they don't do a lot of them. But the ones that they do are really lovely. They're really pretty. I'll put a photo in of what they look like. And they're sort of similar flavour to a rock melon, I suppose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim one this direction to go across the trellis work that way, and then 2 on this side to go across the trellis work that way. So I'm just going to place them in and tamp them down. Good mulching. I'll let them relax in here for a day or 2. I'm doing the grocery shopping, so I'll go and do the grocery shopping before I come back, and then I'll start training them up the trellis. So I'm just going to stick one in the middle here. And one to the side. Just like that, and then I'll water them in slightly, and then I'm just going to let them settle in, and I'll train them up the trellis once I come back, once they're at a sort of a size to do that. And I might, put something in the front here just to fill this bucket up a little bit. As I said before, these buckets, I'm sort of crowding plants into them, but they're really well fertilized, so I don't think that's an issue, because I'm going to keep on top of them like container planting and keep the nutrients in there over the whole time that these plants are growing. So that is how we plant out the wicking buckets. So that was mid-October that I filmed the building of that bed and things like that, and we're now on the 1st of November. So I'm just going to turn you around and show you the bed. Now, not much growth has occurred. It's been very warm, which is impacting some of the growth. It's been a little too warm for some things. But they're looking healthy, and the soil is looking nice and damp. I haven't planted out the front of it yet though, but I will get to that. So this is what it looks like now. So we've got some good growth on these. I still haven't trellised them up just because I haven't really needed to. This one's getting to a point where I could put a clip on it, but I've just let them go, and the soil is lovely and moist in here. And so the wicking seems to be working. Everything's covered in ants at the moment because we've got rain threatening, but they look good and healthy, so I'm pretty happy with how that's going for the moment. Obviously this is our first year doing it, and I'm basing these builds on research done via the internet and YouTube and everyone else. So it's still going to be interesting to see how they work over the span of the season, and obviously there might be things that I need to change or adapt or whatever else as I go through. I'll just have to wait and see. But for the moment, the pumpkins and the watermelons are in them as well, and they seem to be working well. We did have a little bit of a learning curve of needing to top water it initially when I planted the seedlings, because they were quite small. So I needed to top water it as well as fill the bottom so that they could sort of meet in the middle with the wicking process. But other than that, we've been really happy with them so far. So I will keep you updated through the season, and that's how we built them.